Hey guys, George at SoundTraxx here. This week we wanted to build a little bit more on what we talked about last week, which was all the lights and everything else that's built into the decoder. Now, some of the comments under the video were, how do you enable certain lighting effects? And so today we're going to do that. We're going to show you this on the Blunami tablet, and we're going to use the Android version today. But all of this is also able to be done with the Tsunami 2, just using the CVs. And as I go along, I'll mention the CV numbers and associated values. And so that way you can also set these at home using your models. Now, one thing I do want to point out is both of these models are equipped with LEDs. So the lighting values I'm going to be giving you are for LEDs. And if you want to know what the purpose of that is, you can check out another video that we've done in the past about LED compensation. But for now, we're going to go ahead and dive into how to set up things like the number boards on this Milwaukee Road locomotive, and then we're going to set up alternating flashing ditch lights on the Amtrak. So let's go ahead and get started. So first off, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with the Milwaukee Road. Now, one of the biggest keys here is to know which wire is wired to which lighting output. So in this case, we know that the number boards, we're going to set up the number boards on this Milwaukee Road unit, but we know the number boards are actually tied to the FX3 lighting output, which is our third lighting output, being a headlight and backup light is 1 and 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to set the lighting effect. Now, lighting effects are set up through CVs 49 through 56, and you can actually see this in our user's guide on this page that will actually show you the values that correspond to it and which lighting effect, so that way you can set up your CVs directly. But in this case, with the Blunami app, as you see, we don't need to worry about CVs at all. So first thing what we want to do is we want to go ahead and turn on the FX3 light. So I'm going to go ahead and push the function button here. You can see the side menu pull up for the Milwaukee Road 18, and I'm going to turn on the FX3 light. Now, as you can see in the screenshot over there, the light is extremely bright. Now, when we compare that to the actual headlight, you can see that it's equally bright as the headlight. But in the real world, the number boards are typically dimmed. And the reason for that is so they don't appear as headlights as you're running down, because the number boards are used for train number indications, which we'll have another video coming up soon, Ops 101, as we talk about train indication. But I'm foreshadowing there. But anyway, so what we want to do is we want to take that to a dim light. Now, one way you could do this is you could use a higher value resistor and dim it down, but then you're guessing and changing different value resistors until you get the right brilliance that you desire. But the good news is with the Tsunami 2 and the Blunami, you can actually do that using these settings. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and heat our gear settings. And first we're going to go to light settings. And when we see light settings, we see all the different adjustments that we can make for each of the different lighting outputs. So in this case, we're going to use the FX3. Now the FX3 lighting effect you can see is listed right there on top. So when I click on this diesel light, you can see that now I have a full list of all the different lighting effects that are available for me to be able to use for the number board light. And there's our diesel light, and you can see that it's grayed to identify that that's what's currently active. But as we continue to go forward, you're going to see this on-off brightness 1. And what that is that's a simple on-off that you can adjust the brilliance so that way you can make the light brighter or dimmer based on your perceptions and your desires that you want to do. So we're going to go ahead and click on-off brightness 1, and you'll notice that my lights now on the number boards have actually dimmed a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and click OK. Now this is going to be CV51. And the value that we just put into CV51 is actually a value of 147. Why 147? Well, first off, it's a value of 19 to select the on-off brilliance 1. And then you'll notice here on our screen, we have a headlight type, or the lamp type is an LED, or whether it's an incandescent bulb. But in this case, it's an LED. So we take our value of 128 for LEDs plus the 19 for the on-off brilliance 1, and that gives us a value of 147. So now using on-off brilliance 1, we can actually go to our brightness, and you'll see master brightness, then there's brightness 1, brightness 2, and then the dimmer level. And the dimmer level is designed for when you dim your headlight, hit the F7, you can adjust how bright the light will be. But in this case, we're going to adjust the brightness 1. We're going to go ahead and take this, and we're going to slide this down a little bit. And you'll notice that the light's actually getting a little dimmer as we go further and further down. Or we can go all the way up, and you'll notice that the light is getting brighter, and it's following as my hand is moving. If you know what value you like, you can also simply type in. So we're just going to go ahead and set a value of 50 here, and we're going to click OK. And now you can see that now that number board is extremely dim compared to the headlight right next to it. But it is bright enough that you can still yet see the number boards. So this is the way that we would adjust the number boards and to make them a dim light. You could also do the same thing for things like class lights, ground lights on there, interior cab lights, whatever you want to do. You can use this on-off brilliance 1, and then there's a second register on-off brilliance 2 that allows you to have different dim lights at different dim values and different brilliances, so that way you can more realistically model the locomotive that you're trying to with the right lighting effects. So the last thing we want to do is, now that we know that the FX3 is actually our number boards, we want to name that. So when we go in here to Manage Function Panel, this is where you can see where each of the lighting or each of the effects are assigned to the various things. But we're going to go over here to 24 where it says it's the FX3 light. We're going to click on that, and we're actually going to change the name. So here we're going to change this to number boards. And then there's a section there where it says lock name. And what that does is that allows it to not overwrite what we enter here. So when we click that, now whenever we connect to this locomotive, it's always going to display number boards. So if we change something, we'll have to go back and unlock and rechange it to whatever it is. But normally things like this, like lights, you're not going to. So we save it. Now you can see here in your screen that it says number boards. So now when I come back out here, you can see now that when I switch over to my functions, you can see that it now says number boards, and it shows that they're on. I can push that again and turn the number boards off. You can see that the number boards are extinguished, but they're on now. So you can go ahead and adjust that accordingly. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set up ditch lights on our P42 over here. So now we're basically going to do the same thing. Now when we turn on our Amtrak engine, you can see that we have F24. You can see that it turns on one light, and then when I hit the FX4, it turns on the other. Now, to be fair, I did do some changing when I was getting ready for this video. So normally that would say FX3 instead of F24, but we'll work with it as it does. But you can see that when I turn on the FX4 and the FX3, that the two lights light up separately. So now I know that those are my two ditch lights. So again, I'm going to go in and set the settings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hit my gear settings. Now I'm going to go again to my light settings. Now in this particular case, we're doing the FX3 and the FX4. So we're going to go to FX3 lighting effects. And again, you have your lighting effects. So we're going to go ahead and click that. We're going to scroll through. And we have ditch light type 1 and ditch light type 2. Now ditch light type 1, when you enable crossing logic, will stay illuminated. And then when you start the crossing logic, will start to flash the light. And then when that times out, it goes back to solid. Type 2 stays extinguished. And then when you blow the horn, it will start flashing and then extinguish once that timer expires. So for this Amtrak unit, we're going to use ditch light type 1. We're going to go ahead and click OK. Now there's a couple of other factors here. Number one, you see it says phase selection. This is phase A. Now this is where you're going to get those alternating flashing lights. So phase A is the first one. Traditionally, most lights are going to be set to phase A. Now you can see that because I had already set this up, grade crossing logic is enabled, but you could simply click that, enable or disable. We're going to go ahead and leave it enabled. And you see that it says LED. And we have it labeled in forward and extinguished in reverse. Now we're going to do the same thing for the FX4. By the way, I'm sorry, that was CV51 again. But in this case, for the type 1 ditch light, we're setting CV51 to a value of 201. And what that is 128 for LED, that plus 64 for grade crossing, plus 9 for type 1 ditch light. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for the FX4. So now we're going to turn on select our lighting effect. And again, we're going to click type 1 ditch light. We're going to click OK. But you can see this already has selected phase B, opposite. And that's where you're going to get that opposite phase A, phase B type effect. So we're going to click OK. That's phase B. You see crossing logic is enabled, LED, yes, no, so forth. So now we have our lights set up. Now, for reference, that was CV52. Now, basically, we're doing the same thing. LED compensation with crossing logic. So 128 plus 64 plus phase. Now we're adding 32 plus 9 for the phase, or for the type 1 ditch light. We come to a value of 233. And that's kind of how you do the math when it comes to setting up your CVs. So now when I turn on the lights, let's go back. Sorry, I had to make sure the lights were on or off. Now we're going to go ahead and turn on our 2 lights. And now you'll notice I have to turn them on independently, but we're going to fix that in just a moment. Now both lights are on. Now when I blow the horn, you can see now that the lights are alternating and flashing. And that way, that's how you set up the alternating flashing ditch lights. But what a pain to have to turn it on with 2 separate buttons. The good news is with our FlexMap function mapping, you can do this yourself. So we're going to go again, we're going to close that. We're going to go back to our function setting here. We're going to see function remap. So when we come over here, you can see we have our headlight, backup light, FX3, FX4, and so on the screen. Now the associated CV is right next to it. So in our Tsunami 2s, the CV is assigned to the effect. The value of the CV corresponds to the button that controls it. So in this case, you can see that CV 1.259 is set to a value of 24. And then CV 1.260 is set to a value of 25, so that the 24 and the 25 key will turn on the respective lights. But we want them both turned on the same way. So we're going to remap this using our app in the Blunami. And when I click on here, next to where the 25 is, you can see my FX4 lighting effect. Which button do I want to turn it on? Well, because I want them both to turn on the same, I'm going to click the 24 key right there on the screen. And when I hit save, now you can see on the screen that both CV 1.259 and 1.260 are both now set to 24. Now, when I want to remember that these are the ditch lights, I can go into Manage Function Panel. And just like we did with the number boards, we're going to go ahead and scroll down here. And we're going to click the 24 here. And we're going to take this off of the FX4. We're going to label this as ditch lights. And then we're going to lock it and then save it. And now when I come back out here, when I hit my functions, we'll turn off F25 and you can see that both of my lights have stayed on because the ditch lights are in the on condition. Now I turned them off. Now we turn them back on, and when I blow the horn, you can see that the horn blows and then the lights start to flash, and then they will flash for a dedicated amount of time. So you can set this up using the CVs either with the Blunami or Tsunami 2, or you can set this all up through the app using the Blunami app that you can get free on your smart device. So this is just one way that you can set up various lighting effects. And we've got lots of different lighting effects as we talked about last week, including things like firebox flicker. We can do Mars lights, gyro lights, rotary beacons. You can even do an opposite direction dimmed. So if you want the headlight and backup light on, but dimmed in the opposite direction of travel, you can certainly do that. Those are all different settings that we can do with our decoder. So I hope this has been helpful for you. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at support@SoundTraxx.com or give us a call and we can help you set up your lights as the way you want them to be. So I hope this has been helpful for you. If you like this type of content, please give us a like down below. Also, make sure you're subscribed to our channel because we post informative videos like this every week to try to help make running your trains and getting your trains set up the way you want it a little bit easier for you every time. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.